a lot of people are just not content in the way they are living right now and are not reconnecting with their own life force, with their own life essence, because there's just something along the way that made them feel stuck, that got them stuck in their bodies, in their system, and are therefore searching. Like, there must be more than this, or there must be a deeper quality of life than I'm experiencing right now. So yeah, that's what I'm speaking to share that there is, and that there are so many opportunities for our happiness, for our well-being, and most of all our health, because I believe that health is our greatest wealth. It's it's a very paradoxical thing, but in the moment that we don't feel healthy anymore, that we don't have a healthy body or a healthy mind, then we realize that that's the only important thing, our health.
Welcome to this episode of Essence. In this episode, I have the honor to have Vivian Zandkuijl with me. Vivian offers healing work in the realms of bodywork, being a ceremonialist and a sound healer. In this episode, we'll talk about the topic of health and healing. So if you want to learn about different approaches to health and healing and about her story, then stay tuned. This is definitely a super beautiful and really interesting episode. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here with you and share our stories and current inspirations. So thank you. And also for offering this beautiful podcast to the world. I think it's so beautiful for people to find this inspiration online and how they can find and get closer to their essence. So thank you, John.
Thank you. I definitely take that. And I really hope that whoever's listening right now, that this can inspire you, this conversation, wherever it will take us. And one thing that we did before starting to record this session was a little time travel. Vivian traveled to the last time that she felt connected to her essence, and I don't know yet what that was, and I'm super excited. So do you want to take us on this little journey or to this situation? Where did you feel connected to your essence?
Yeah, sure. So the first experience that came up for me was a healing session I was offering a few days ago with my partner. And we we both together developed this healing method, which I can share more about later. But for now, we were giving the treatment, and there was a wonderful woman on the table, and we were doing both physical manipulation as sound and frequency healing, just to give a little bit of context. And I was sitting next to her, and I was playing the crystal balls, creating a ongoing sound, and I just felt that I needed to sing for her in her mother tongue. So she was Spanish speaking originally, and I was sitting there and I was like, there's no Spanish song that's coming to me right now. Like, I know all these medicine songs, but it's not coming up. So I just stayed quiet and listened, and then there was just this Spanish song coming through me that I don't know where it came from. It was something connected to life or spirit or whatever you want to call it. And there was a Spanish song coming through. And I felt it while I was singing. I felt it in my whole body that it was the right thing in that moment, and that it was supporting her in the process. She was going through a deep physical healing process in that moment. And while I was singing, I felt her energy field shift. And she just started to break out in gratitude and in happiness. And that moment of feeling so connected with life, to using my voice in this healing moment, and just to feel her reaction, was just this magical alchemy to me. So for me, that was such a pure Vivian essence moment.
Wow, that sounds like a very, very beautiful experience. And I already saw like all these different big topics coming up of what we'll probably also be exploring in this episode. You were speaking about health, and now you spoke about voice as well and healing. So I'm super curious about everything that we will be covering today. And yes, I would actually love also to invite you, maybe share a little bit of what it is that you're doing right now, like that people get a taste of, yeah, how is Vivian offering herself to the world
Hmm.
and sharing her gifts?
Good question. I sometimes wonder myself as well what that is. And so I really enjoy the healing domain. So I've been, for the last 6 years, been diving deep into healing work. And it's a combination of physical work, body work, and also a lot connected to opening the breath. So I work together with my partner. We created a healing modality together, and a lot about this healing modality is about the breath, because we figured on all the people we were working on that their breath was frozen. Like people weren't breathing fully, and you see it in the posture, like they collapse, and you see it in the overall health of people, like organs that start to fail, disease that's coming up. So a lot of the work uh, I am doing is involves around the breath. So physically opening up the breath, but also helping people to do breath work and find their own techniques to open the breath. Um, so the breath is a big one. Also abdominal release. I work a lot with the internal organs to just make sure everything is functioning well, and to help people to, a lot of people have like stagnant energy in their organs, or their organs are not draining properly, or people are congested, tightened. So it's really about diving deep in that whole abdominal area and, yeah, working through stagnant energy and emotions that are found there. So it's the abdominal, it's the breath, it's body work, it's sound and frequency healing. Also, I think that's one of the reasons why we're sitting here right now, because we met each other in this beautiful mystery school for sound healing, where we were both serving and sharing some of our magic. And yeah, I just found that voice and sound is such a powerful medicine. So that is a big part of what I do. I do a lot of ceremonial work with people as well, movement, yoga, dance, um, and I love to work with cacao as well in all of this work. So yeah, I give treatments together with my partner. I do it separately. I guide people one on one. Yeah, every experience is so unique because everyone, is in a way dealing with the same. Like I feel it's on a collective level. I feel it very strongly how people are suffering in many ways, and on the individual level as well. That's how it's been reflected. So it's really catered to the person in front of me. But it's very somatic. It's helping people to be more in their bodies and less in the mind. It's helping people to connect back to nature, because I do feel like the suffering we see around us, a big part of that is that we just lost connection with nature. We are nature. We are cyclical beings that, we have our own cycles. We go through the seasons. We as women, we go through our cycles. Men go through their cycles in their way, and we try to box this all in, in 9 to 5 structure and school and job, and it all feels boxed. It doesn't feel natural to me. And how often do we take off our socks and feel our feet in the earth? So yeah, connecting back to nature, because I feel it. I feel how the earth is crying. Like we are poisoning her. We are poisoning ourselves in so many ways. And we have to make a change. So yeah, I feel that strongly in my heart.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I definitely feel a lot of passion when you speak about this and speaking about all these different facets. It sounds like a truly, like a very holistic approach to healing.
It's the only way, I believe. Like, it's not just Western medicine or Eastern medicine. It's building the bridge, right? It's combining all that we know and pick the fruits.
And why would you say, why would it be important for someone who is listening right now um, to learn a little bit more about these topics or to dive into these topics? Maybe there are specific symptoms that people experience when they come to you and say, hey, Vivian, I would love to have a treatment. What is it that people come for, and why would it be important for someone listening right now?
So I think we're all on our unique path and all experience the world in our own way. So yeah, I just hope in this conversation that people can pick out what is resonating with them and the seeds they want to plant. So people that come to find me quite often both have physical struggles, like so many people are suffering from chronic headaches, neck pains, just bloatedness in the belly or stuckness in the belly, feeling like they cannot breathe, feeling they're not fully alive, feeling that they are not living their life's purpose, feeling that there must be something else than this. And yeah, a lot of people are just not content in the way they are living right now and are not reconnecting with their own life force, with their own life essence, because there's just something along the way that made them feel stuck, that got them stuck in their bodies, in their system, and are therefore searching. Like, there must be more than this, or there must be a deeper quality of life than I'm experiencing right now. So yeah, that's what I'm speaking to share that there is, and that there are so many opportunities for our happiness, for our well-being, and most of all our health, because I believe that health is our greatest wealth. It's it's a very paradoxical thing, but in the moment that we don't feel healthy anymore, that we don't have a healthy body or a healthy mind, then we realize that that's the only important thing, our health. That's what it comes down to. That's our true abundance. So bringing ourselves back to what is important, and yeah, what is abundance really for us in essence.
Yeah, wow. I'm getting really excited because there's so many different topics and so much depth to each one of them. And like in general, I really want to have all these podcast episode in a way that it doesn't require any prior knowledge, and it's like very easy to connect with and relatable. And I was wondering, you mentioned that sometimes people feel stuck or something gets stuck in them. And I thought maybe someone would like to know, like, what causes this? Like, what can happen to me that I feel stuck? Is it something from inside, from the external world? What could be different factors contributing to this?
Oof, that's a deep question. And again, I think it's very personal. I believe the biggest one is the stories we tell ourselves. And then I'm talking about the limiting beliefs that, for example, we are not worthy of love. We're nothing. We are not talented. We're not gifted. Like, all these negative stories that we can tell ourselves, they get stuck in our tissues. They get stuck in our bodies. Like, for example, our lungs, our breath of life. Our lungs are our just emotions. And if we feel things, if we go through emotions, but we don't allow them to come out, we don't allow them to express, they get stuck, and we get stuck. So I believe it's the limiting beliefs that we hold. I believe it's not feeling like we're able to express ourselves, and holding ourselves back, like literally building a wall. It can be a traumatic experience, so it could actually be, a car crash, but it could also be a deep heartbreak that we're carrying with us. So I think these are some examples. And on a bigger scale, I also think that we don't have access to the same foods or the same quality of foods that we used to have. So a lot of the topsoil is contaminated, like our foods are sprayed, our water is poisoned. I don't want to go too much in a negative loop downwards, but I do feel that our bodies are not fully receiving the nutrition that we need. And there's so much like distraction around us. Like, for example, radiation is one of them. I believe that constantly being on our phone, constantly being on screens, those really affect just our life force. And I believe our body is just this breathing, opening, closing mechanism. So our body is a pump. Our craniosacral pump, so the base of our skull connected to our tailbone, is where the life force is flowing through us. And I believe with the ways that there is some external contamination happening, I believe that pulse, that craniosacral pump, is being distorted in a way, so that we cannot fully project our life force outward as well. So I think it's in and out, it's above and below, it's the whole story. It's the whole thing. It's how we're nurturing ourselves, but also how we are nurturing the earth and how that's being reflected. So it's a in that sense, it's a very comprehensive, like a bigger story, and it's unique to everyone specifically. But I do believe that that our stories and our us not always taking good care of ourselves and knowing how to take care of ourselves, like really knowing how to listen to our bodies, to listen to our heart, to listen to our belly, and losing that connection is a big one in why we cannot feel good.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts to share.
Please.
And from the way you speak about it, I also totally assume that you speak about it in a way of there's no shaming involved. It's like I have the story and the story manifests in my body, and I picked up the story from somewhere. I learned it from a system, from a conditioning, and now I'm still carrying it with me, and it gets just deeper and deeper into my tissue. And how I experienced a lot of development and growth was that the first step is of awareness, bringing awareness to, that's where I'm currently at. Okay, cool. Then I can make some steps into certain directions. So I was wondering, is there a way for people to self-diagnose? Now, if someone heard, amazing, maybe I can figure out I'm stuck here and then I can do that. What would you say?
Good question. I think that awareness, as you said, is so important, and not only to be aware, but also I think there is non-reactivity that comes with that as well, right? Like you can be aware of something and it's like, oh yeah, but how do I react to things? So when it comes to the stories, we can just become aware about them just by meditating, by sitting with them, or just like, suddenly you see the light, like, oh yeah, I'm running this story. And is it actually true? And sitting with it in meditation. And I do believe that this healing journey is very non-linear. So I don't think there is a to B in diagnosing. Like, oh, I feel this, so it must be that. I think it's really a life's journey to get to know ourselves better, to get to know our bodies better, because in different phases of our lives, different things work. And it's really about feeling which medicine, and I'm not speaking about like an actual medicine, but like a method or a practice or whatever it is, what resonates with us, what is true. Like if we can understand things with our mind, but if we feel them in our whole body, like, oh yes, this seems right for me. I believe that's the key in recognizing what is what it is that we need, or what is that diagnose, and from there to start to choose, okay, maybe I'll walk this path for a while, or maybe I'll try this modality, and see along the way if it's working for us. And I do believe with some, like that frozen breath, for example, I do believe there's a couple of boxes you can tick, like, oh yeah, my breath is frozen. Like it's a simple test where you just breathe in fully and stretch your chest open and just see if you can hold your breath and see where you feel tightness in your chest while you do it. So it's not a really straightforward answer to that question, but gradually just unraveling what comes up.
Yeah, and that to me comes the title or the tagline, the path to feeling. What are the first steps for someone who is listening and saying like, okay, Vivian, I love all of that, I want to do it, makes total sense, but where do I start? It's like, well, what do I do? The first couple of steps.
Slowing down your breath. Taking a deep breath. I think that's where we start. And allowing that breath to help us land deeper in our body. And from there to start to listen. So it's as simply as taking a deep breath in my perspective in how to start. And then it becomes just more about listening, to sitting with it, to meditating, or join a sound bath, or do an embodiment practice. I think there's all these ways of connecting to ourselves, and again, we have to figure out what works for us, because for me, yoga was a big part of my life in the last years, and now it's a lesser part. And it doesn't mean I don't love yoga anymore. It just means that it's not as present for me right now. Like there's other things where I focus on. So again, it's really about checking in with yourself. Like, yeah, what is my medicine right now? Yeah, what would be your question or answer to that question, John? I'm curious.
Yeah, the first steps. Well, on my personal path, the first steps were through raising awareness of my emotional landscape and my bodily sensations. Being like, okay, what do I actually feel between my shoulders, in my hips, in my chest? Do I feel open or tight? And at the beginning, I wasn't sure. I was like, I feel good or bad. That was the most differentiated I could say. And then step by step, I learned to experience, okay, I'm stuck here. And then just, as you were saying, working with the breath, just breathing into, for example, my chest and visualizing this part. And with every exhale, visualizing the letting go. And actually, I do this every morning, basically. I did a little body scan and a meditation, go through my entire body and just see, where is it tense, where is it open, and see if I can just relax a little bit more into it. And that relaxes my body and also brings a more and more differentiated view and understanding of my system. And then, well, the rabbit hole just begins, being like, okay, what is the emotion here? What is the quality? What does it want to tell me? And so on and so forth. So for me, it was really getting in touch with my body, my emotions through observing and feeling them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And it's also endless, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always more. There's always more to experience. And
Totally.
while you were sharing that, another thought popped up that quite often in treatments, so we do muscle testing, we check through kinesiology where someone is stuck in their body or where their electric circuit, so to say, is not firing. And we start working on those areas. And what we quite often do is we work, so every like lesion, every like primary stuckness in our body always has two sides to it. So you could see it as a shirt that you wrinkle from both sides. And in those treatments, we try to untwist them, so to say, by working at it from both ends. And usually when we dive into someone's body, into someone's energy body, while we're working on someone, random stories come up for people. So we're working on this stuck part in the body, like you were describing, and they are really feeling it. And then, unconsciously, the unconscious becomes conscious. So the story comes up like, oh, wait a minute, when I was that age, I got hit in the face. And that was a really painful and traumatic experience. And in that treatment, we invite the person to really go into the story and talk about it. And by talking about it, they get to release it from their body and from their tissue. So I do really see that when we go into these spaces where we're stuck, our body will always tell us what it is. Like something random, a thought comes up, and quite often it's not random, it's pointing us exactly in the way, in the direction of, where to look. So it's about listening, but also the more we listen, the more our bodies will start to tell us.
Wow, that's beautiful. And listening to you, I had this thought and question come up, and I'm so curious about how you will describe it and answer it. What is healing? What is that?
I don't know.
So many people speak about it. I speak about it. But what is it?
My perception on healing is bringing our body back into resonance. So I see us as a resonant being, as a being that carries frequency, that puts out frequency like a radio. It's measurable as well. It's not just woo-woo. And I believe when that energetic field, that body gets distorted, either, by trauma, by painful events, by those stories we tell ourselves or each other, we get a distortion in that wholeness that we are in essence. We are whole beings, but we get out of harmony. And being out of harmony doesn't only mean out of harmony with ourselves, but also our environment and of nature. So it's coming back into harmony, I would say. Yeah. What's your thought on it? On what healing is? It's such a abstract
it is
thing.
And yeah, as a musician as well, I love how you phrased it, coming back to harmony. That sounds very good to me. And yeah, I would say something similar. Like for me, I believe that all of us, we are naturally born with our essence. Like we come to the world with our essence, and that's free and just flows and expresses itself in the most innocent way. And then I believe that throughout our lives, as you're also sharing, like stories get attached or some contractions happen because we experience some events. And all of this blocks the essence just from flowing freely. I think the chiropractic approach is also quite similar, saying life flows freely unless it's blocked. And I believe in a similar way, this is true for our essence. So healing for me is unblocking. Healing for me is bringing back to flow. Healing for me is letting the innocence of our being show itself. And I feel that in our society, it's so much about this innocence which gets lost or which gets judged or which gets diminished. And then I sometimes don't dare to show myself because of this thought of I might get judged. I won't be innocent. Better be proper or this version. So yeah, I'm so fascinated by this topic because it's everywhere. Our entire societies were built in this way and shape us. So I actually hope with what we're doing in this very moment, this is a contribution, inspiration to healing, to coming back into resonance, to harmony, to innocence.
Yeah, I really hope this is a healing experience for everyone involved, for sure. And yeah, one more thing I would like to say about that is I had this very dear friend. She's a massage therapist, and we were talking about the people we see, and she shared that she has quite a lot of cancer patients that she's treating, and every time a person comes up to her, yeah, I have cancer, stage blah blah blah, she's like, congratulations, it's this is your body giving you a chance to heal, to create a new narrative, to start a new story. And in the health, in the medicine world, it's so quite often we are sick, we're sick, there's something wrong with us, we have this diagnosis that keeps us caged, keeps us in a prison, like, oh, I have this condition, so there's something wrong with me. And that's a label we give ourselves, instead of listening like, oh no, this is our body inviting us to do something different, to quit that job that's not serving us, to start eating healthy, to really start diving in my highest excitement and those hobbies. And yeah, it was so refreshing to me that she said that, like, because so often we're like, oh, you're sick, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, we can make this into a celebration. We can make this into this beautiful opportunity in life. So I feel that's healing too. Healing can be just that one miracle, that one thing that shifts everything and creates the new direction in life that makes us thrive.
I find it so fascinating how you speak about that and about your friend as well, what she shared. To me, it sounds like it gives choice. The choice of I can either go down the road and say, I feel so sorry for you, which we might do. And it might be super authentic and true in that moment.
It's nothing wrong with it, no.
It's nothing wrong with it, yeah. And we can also say, okay, what can we do now? Like, how is that a message? And I also assume that you feel about it in a similar way, that it's a situation which we don't want to wish anyone to have a disease. And at the same time, it's listening to our bodies. I take this as a message from what you are saying, that it's about how can we listen to the messages of our body. And this can manifest in diseases. For example, Gabor Mate, he also speaks about this a lot. He wrote this book, A Myth of Normal, works a lot on trauma, super fascinating person. So I recommend everyone to check him out as well. And there he says also, like, how can we understand diseases in a different way? And how could we actually shape our healthcare system in a way that it doesn't try to get rid of the signal? Because our body wants to send us something with a signal, and our healthcare system says, let's take away the signal and not look at the root cause. And it's very generalized. I don't want to say that everyone does it in that way. And at the same time, my experience very often is actually exactly this.
Yeah, for sure. And the root cause, that's such a big one in all of this. Like, what is underlying, instead of just sitting with the symptoms and reacting to the symptoms, like diving deeper, diving to the root, basically diving down into our body and, okay, what is my body telling me? Yeah, it's fascinating indeed.
It is. And as we are speaking before about like that, what we are doing here, learning about health and healing is a lifelong journey. I'm actually very curious about your journey. What brought you to health and healing? Was it this that you've been doing for the last many, many years? Or what was your path? If someone says, I actually like what Vivian's doing, I'm excited about what is the path there and why did she decide to step onto this path?
Disease was the start. um, yeah, I went through a period of burnouts about 7 years ago, and I was having a beautiful career and relationship and life in the city, and on paper all the pillars were stable, were great. I was successful, but something inside of me was just saying something different, and I got to this point where I was just I burned down my whole system. My whole nervous system was totally down, and I went through a longer phase of resting and just getting my nervous system back functioning from constantly being in fight or flight, coming back to a more balanced way of living. So for me, it took a long time to slow down, to learn how to slow down again and to rest. So there was a big recovery period. And then, I was in the Dutch system and they said, okay, you're ready to go back to work. Off you go. So there I was back at the office, and I remembered I was sitting in a marketing meeting and everyone was talking, and I just felt like all of this is not adding any value. There's just people discussing each other, but it's not going anywhere. So I got up from the table, I walked one round around the building, and I just knew it, like, it's not me anymore. So I went back, and while I was walking back, the CEO came out and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, but would you please fire me?" And we had a little bit of a conversation, and then she fired me. And from there, this new path came to life, and it was more about following my heart. So it was quite rigorous. It was a painful death, so to say, of who I was, because I, in 1 week, quit my job. I moved out of the house I was living, and I was in a relationship with a beautiful man, but it wasn't working. So in one week, I ended all of that, and before I know it, I was on the plane to Costa Rica to do my first yoga teacher training. And from there, things just kept rolling. I knew I had to be there. I had to go to this wonderful permaculture farm in Costa Rica and study yoga. And and then things just kept happening. And I feel like I got more in the space of flow. And in that flow, life could present me what was the next step over and over again. So from yoga, I dove deeper into bodywork. And from there, I dove deeper into ceremonial work, and from the ceremonial work, more in the somatics, and then sound and frequency healing. So in the last 6 years, I did a lot of training. I worked in a lot of different places with a lot of different people, and I just dove deeper into all these subjects that inspire me, that I feel excitement with. So it was really about following that that excitement that came up. And yeah, I've been traveling all over the world, and I've always been taken care of. And I now talk about it very lightly, like blah blah, blah flow. It's all good, but it's been very challenging as well. To every time where I feel like, oh, how is this gonna work out? To lean in and trust, like, okay, life has got my back. So I do feel that apart from following the heart, there must be a deeper trust as well for living our essence. Because if we take the leap without trusting that things will work out on some level, then it's very hard to take that leap. So I believe there is a spiritual aspect to all of this as well.
What a path. I can so imagine the situation where you said, hey, could you please fire me? And just with like this, felt to me like this wake up situation, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. This reality, what I'm seeing here, that's not me anymore. It sounded very clear when you spoke about it.
Yes, there was a deep clarity coming with that.
And I was wondering also, because taking these steps afterwards, I can imagine at the beginning, well, that it could have been also quite challenging, like leaving this job, ending a relationship. I feel like so many pillars of your life were just crumbling or actively being torn down. And I was wondering what was supporting you in this time to make these steps.
Yeah, again, I have to come back to that trust, like trusting that it was the right thing, that the life I was living was not serving me anymore, and I just had to try something else and start with one thing and just go for it. I believe that was it. And yeah, I do think that daily practices are very helpful as well, like doing a embodiment practice or exercise, meditate, and deep listening. And that's about the listening too. Like our environment, I believe, always gives us the right breadcrumbs. Like there was one friend and she said, oh, I know you really love yoga, and I have a really good friend in Costa Rica who's offering this teacher training. I think maybe that's something for you. And I started looking into it, and I felt, yeah, that's right. So it was the right friend for me in that moment as well. So community, it's a big one. Yeah. Have you ever been through such a big shift in your life, John, where you changed everything, or are you more of a gradually consistent change maker?
That's, a good question. I had definitely different various phases in my life, which feel so different, each one of them. Like I studied robotics and medical engineering many years ago, and that feels like a life which it's hard for me to connect with. And from that life, I had there was not a gradual, but very abrupt change of phase or life towards working in a strategy consultancy. And before that, I was playing in 3 different bands at the same time, having volleyball training twice a week and seeing many, many friends. And then from day one on, working in this consultancy, like all this other stuff was just gone. And at first I really enjoyed what I was experiencing, being like, okay, now I get to travel around, and it felt like an invitation to the shiny world. Everything was shiny and expensive and like, wow. Everyone seemed very important. But then I had this one moment as well where I just looked at my life. I can't remember where I was. Maybe I was at home, And or in a hotel, probably I was in a hotel room actually. And then I looked at my life and realized, hey, you were playing in 3 bands before. You were really enjoying this. You were playing volleyball. You loved this. You enjoyed spending time with your friends and just experiencing new stuff. And now you're here and everyone's just talking about gaining extra points for miles and more, or who has the best hotel room. Is this really the life I want to live? Yeah, so I think that was one wake up call and one wake up moment. And I always want to be very careful and clear about that. I don't want to say this world is the bad world and I've now transcended and I'm now the illuminated something. I don't see it at all like this. I just realize for me, this is not an environment where what wants to grow next in me is supporting me. And yeah, I think I had a couple of these moments throughout my life, just always with the sensation of this doesn't suit me anymore. It's like clothes. Or maybe half a year ago, I said something like, this environment doesn't feel nurturing. And I try to make my decisions based on what would make my soul happy and dance. What would make me thrive? And where do I feel lightness and joy and creativity? And actually starting this entire Essence brand with also this podcast feels like another one of these steps where I'm like, yes, it feels so good. This is so nurturing. So this conversation feels like it's nurturing me. It's good for my soul, for my health. It's healing. It makes me a more whole human being. And I think this is the most recent one of these steps.
Yay.
And I'm glad that you asked. Wow.
Yeah, I want to celebrate that. And as you mentioned, there's no right or wrong path. There's a path, and we follow it in our greatest capacity in that moment, I believe, and we learn along the way. And it's a unique path. Like what you're doing probably doesn't work for me per se, or vice versa. So it's like, oh yeah, figuring out what it is that, like you voiced that really, really beautiful, that's nourishes, that feeds your soul. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what is in common to all stories, yours, mine, other people's stories and experiences, I believe that it comes down to what you also mentioned, this quality of listening and following the breadcrumbs. And I would actually love to inspire everyone, and I want to create, different ways of how to do this, that we can learn to listen better, in the sense that listen to what would serve us next, seeing the potential and the path ahead, and creating the skills and ability to actually walk this path. And yeah, something that I could share with you, I think I didn't share it yet. You know that I wrote this one children's book on nonviolent communication, Lara and the Wish Beings.
I love it. I love that book.
And yeah, in a couple of days, I will release the next book. It's called Lara and the Protector. It's in German, the first one. And that's also a lot about listening to the body, actually. Listening to your nervous system and learning to speak its language. And yeah, I think I want to inspire people to listen, to learn to listen.
Oh, what a great gift you're giving the world. And children. Like, it's so beautiful. I wish at being a child I would have access to those kind of books, this kind of knowledge. It's so important to, at least to me, to learn that from a young age, and to get inspiration of how does my body feel in this situation? Does it feel good? Does it feel yes? Or does it feel like a no? Like, it's something I didn't really grow up with, in that sense, that body awareness, that listening to that information of the body. And yeah, such a gift.
I'm actually curious now if there are parents listening right now to this podcast episode, um, and they're like, okay, cool. I want to create an environment that is most nourishing for my kids. Um, and now you have all the experience that you have gathered in your life and being shaped by your experiences. What would you say, like, share with parents to look out for? Like, what could they listen to which kind of cues, or what could be some ingredients for this nourishing soil?
Well, I would just say buy John's books.
Amazing.
uh, well, I have the honor to be an aunt, but I don't have children for myself. So I have been a child myself. I have an inner child, but I won't say I'm an expert in that realm. I do feel to just allow children to learn to listen to their emotions, to their impulses, to the sensations in their lower belly, like the butterflies, or the feeling like something's not really sitting right. To just support kids in feeling their bodies and not making it wrong. Like when a kid is throwing a tantrum, it's so often that we say, and you need to quiet down, and this is not good, you're not listening. But there's always something underneath that, right? Like, what's going on? And if we can just sit down with a child and say, hey, I notice that you're throwing a tantrum. What do you feel in your body, for example? Like and I think for parents it's so important to first learn that themselves, right? To learn for themselves, like, oh, how am I sitting here? Am I a little bit like short sighted right now, or am I a little bit like in a rush? How am I presenting myself here, and how am I reflecting to my child in that sense? Because I do feel children and parents reflect each other, right? Like it's such a big mirror. So yeah, again, I think it comes down to deeper listening. But yeah, how would you answer that? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's also funny. Like I wrote this now two children's books, and I don't have kids myself, so I also say that I'm not an expert in raising children because I've never done that. So that is a little disclaimer, maybe. But I do have a love for human beings, and I've been working with children for 8 years, also after school or during school time and after school time. So that's a perspective from which I'm speaking, and I see like one very important pillar is being an inspiration, just living what is important for you and sharing that with the children, not demanding from them to do something that you're not doing, but being like, okay, I'm going to sit here and breathe. And as I said, I'm not a parent, and it's probably way easier said than done. I totally get that from a lot of people who shared with me their stories about being parents, but listening to your own body, connecting to your own feelings and needs, breathing, freeing your breath, and I guess having a lot of compassion as well helps.
Yep.
And I also remember I wanted to jump on a different track now. Like, I remember that before we started our conversation, we said, it could be fascinating to talk about health and healing. And you said you were super excited about speaking about voice, using our voice for health and healing. what is it that you're currently exploring? Maybe also in connection with emotions and um, understanding your emotions a little bit better, separating one from another. Uh, what is it that you're currently fascinated about these things?
On a personal level, I feel that we can come back to that theory of our body being an instrument, and we need to tune ourselves like we need to tune our guitar. So I love to make sounds, to use my voice and feel in my body where it resonates. Um, I've learned beautiful techniques during the sound healing school and facilitator training where we met actually. That involve all kinds of practices where you can use your body as an instrument to feel where you're stuck. Like when you make a sound and focus on this energy center of the throat and feel like the sound is coming out of resonance, or like you feel a little bit of you hear a little bit of crackling. Quite often it can show us like, oh, I feel a bit stuck here, maybe I'm not speaking up fully. Or when I feel contracted in my heart and I make a sound that's connected to the heart space, I can feel like, oh, something is a little bit stuck here. But I believe we can also use these techniques to flush out our system and to feel where it's stuck, and to use our voice to harmonize ourselves again. And so for myself, I really enjoy doing these kind of practices, and sometimes that's like an intentional practice I'm doing, and sometimes it's just sitting in front of the fire with a drum and just seeing what wants to come through. And when I just sit and tune in, I can bring myself in a trance space or a trance state, and I believe that that's a space where a lot of healing takes place for myself. And it's the same with working on people. So with sound, both with instruments like tuning forks or whatever I'm working with in that moment, I can feel in someone's energy body where there's a disruption or where there's a block. And with the voice, I've learned and experienced and now practice to go into these spaces and to bring it back into harmony. And definitely when the person is receiving a treatment and making the sound together with me, I feel we can just bring each other back into balance, because I believe it works both ways. It's also for me, but it's also for the other person. So I've been playing around with that a lot, and just like tuning into a person and let a song come through. So instead of thinking up a song, I just feel the song that wants to happen. And quite often there is some sort of information, like it's on some levels it's very easy to understand. On a mental level it's sometimes a bit harder to understand, but I just start singing into a person's body, and a harmony comes up, or a sound, or lyrics, and quite often that's exactly what that person needed to hear in that moment. That's so magical. Like I can use my voice with that, for that, and they can use their voice for that. Because when someone is like going through like a painful or traumatic blockage, when we're working on them and we ask them to make a sound while they're processing, we can just feel like their body just relaxes, their body is able to let go. So I believe that in sound, in the voice, there's so much, and the voice is telling us so much. When you listen to someone, you can hear the state of their breath, how they're breathing. You can hear the state of their nervous system, and when you dive really deep, you can hear their whole history and their whole traumas, their beautiful experiences. It's all reflected in a voice. So yeah, I'm doing this voice analysis course right now as well, where yeah, I'm learning more about how to diagnose a person through their voice, because my intuition tells me a lot, my common sense and my knowledge tells me a lot, but to also be able to diagnose, yeah, that excites me at the moment. So that's all the ways I'm working with voice. It's just like this big thing for me. And I also just love creating spaces where we sit in a circle and we just come up with sounds. And for example, to have a drone going, like one tone or one sound going, and just allow people to make sounds, to take up space, to voice what's in their body. So many ways, many excitements.
Wow, amazing. It's so rich, and I deeply honor all the experience that you bring to the table, to the screen, to people online, offline. It feels like such a rich buffet that you can pull off, be like, hey, this is really a holistic approach to health and healing. And I'm personally extremely excited about working with the voice and with music and sound. Um, and as we also met exactly in this kind of space, for me, it's so fascinating to like feel someone's being through their voice and their entire history and what is connected to them in this very moment. And how music is such a universal way and such an immediate experience. I've been opening up and holding also these sound and singing circles, inviting many, many people into them. And it doesn't need a long introduction and explaining the concept. It's just we collectively meet in sound and unison and harmony. And that's what I find super fascinating. It's not about singing right or wrong or specific melody. You need to learn how to, read notes. And it's nothing about that. It's just pure, authentic expression of the moment. And it creates these wonderful sounding choirs that sound even more beautiful than something studied and practiced, which I also enjoy listening to. But it's just like this raw, authentic, it's about truth and authenticity for me, which I deeply value, and the healing power of when this comes into resonance and when people experience, wow, this is inside of me. This is how I can open up. I find this very, very powerful and very touching.
Wow, yeah, exactly. And I believe, at least for myself, I'm so programmed that I have to sing beautifully and keep a rhythm going and stick to the notes. But just that space to be that raw version that wants to scream and go through some sort of cathartic release, to just come back to harmony. Like sometimes we have to be fully out of harmony to come back into harmony, right? Like we have to go through these the notes that make you cringe a little bit to come back to to that breath. And you are such a wonderfully and skilled musician. Like I've heard you play, and I'm very impressed by not only being multi-talented with different instruments, but also just you can really tell that you're able to listen. And I believe makes a great musician great as well, as being able to listen. And then again, that listening skill comes in. And yeah, I really enjoy your work as well, and to hear about your experiences with creating these fields in sound fields where you also see how sound works on the collective level. Would you be open to share a bit more about your experience with that, like how sound can work in groups, and how you can, as a musician, how you experience all of that?
Sure. And thanks for the compliment. I take them.
Yes.
Yeah, for me I read this book by Victor Wooten, cool bass player, and he talks about music as path of spiritual growth. And I was like, how is this? This is interesting. And basically, like, one message is that music is way more than just quote unquote entertainment. Music is way, way more. And I've come to learn and experience, especially this as well in the last years, to feel like, there's way more to music. And that's what we've been talking about. It has like this healing quality. It has this quality of bringing people together, bringing oneself together. And for me, a quality that I find that serves this process is the quality of listening to a space as a musician and being able to translate this into sound. So there are many, many ways and approaches to go about this. One is you can work, of course, one-on-one. That also you described as singing into people's bodies and coming into resonance. And then there is an approach of singing together. You described this having a drone, a single note, and then we just drop into the sea of melodies and express what is alive in us authentically through our voices into a melody. And it's nothing that we think about. It's just starting with one note and following the breadcrumbs of the aliveness inside of us, bringing that into harmony. It's beautiful for authentic self-expression. And then there's another approach, which is basically translating the energy of one person or a group into sound. And that's what I've been also exploring and finding very, very fascinating and interesting, that a group or one person has a sound and it can be felt and translated. And it's not that much about, are we playing in C minor or B flat major? But it's very hard for me actually to describe, to put into words. And I love words. So it's this, translating of something to music. And I believe this something is the current state of someone or a group body. And this can just create these magical experiences and dialogues. People might know when you can have live music and dancers and they can have a conversation. That's so beautiful to watch and witness. And this is similar. It's just not professionals moving their bodies. It's just you and I, human beings, moving their bodies, and that being translated into sound. So super fascinating topic. And I can imagine it's something that one needs to experience. I don't know if my words get close to the sensation that I have in these moments. It's just a very fascinating world. And music is way more than just entertainment. And it's a very powerful tool for healing, in my opinion as well.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree with that. And I think you did really well describing such a experiential thing, basically. And what I really admire is that, and that's my sense of you. Maybe I'm wrong, but that you were coming more from the technical music side, right? Like playing in multiple bands and like being a professional musician, to working with sound in a more healing way. And perhaps, there's no difference. As a person that's in the crowd of that band you're playing in is having a healing experience just by listening to it, versus we create this container where we offer a healing experience with sound and healing of ourselves. Like I guess it's the intention behind all of this. But me personally, I'm not a professional musician at all. I never learned how to play notes. I don't know how to play guitar. I am very intuitive in all of this. And now I'm gradually moving more from the intuitive side to, how can I now include that technical side as well? And For you, it feels almost like the other way around, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Like, how
totally.
would you describe that process?
It's very fascinating and weird at this. For me, it was very weird. So I knew how to play songs and chords and sing the lyrics, and then like practicing that the song sounds as good as possible. And I've been doing that in funk bands and rock bands and jazz big bands, singer-songwriter, solo. So that was where I was coming from. And then, I experienced this modality of following the energy of a group through sound and music. And it was, first of all, a process of unlearning in a way, by that I mean not following my mind, my musical mind, which is like, now it would be super cool if we play a break and then we play a little bit faster and then you play a bass solo. That's what my musicians would say, and it would sound amazing, I think. I hope. But this other approach is, it's actually a lot about letting my own ego aside. It's not what I want to play and what I think would sound amazing to my ears. It's complete letting go of all of this. It's just listen and follow. And I had these experiences which still feel so surreal, that, when people say they had the feeling that they weren't playing or they weren't singing, that's exactly what I was experiencing so often, just watching my hands and fingers move and play and being like, I'm not thinking this. It's just playing. And then sometimes finding myself playing these really weird shapes and that I've never played before, and feeling just so connected. So someone would say very right brain activity, not left brain logic oriented, but just completely in this flow state. So super fascinating experience. And at the same time, this musician's part that like changes, and now we play a verse and then we play a chorus and then a bridge and then we play a B part, sometimes also feels bored. It's like, I'm playing this one chord now for about 5 minutes. I want to do something else. And then every time I realized when I follow this impulse, I lose connection with the energy of the group. And then I'm like, okay, wow, then it's what's needed right now, what serves most, it's playing this one chord for 5 more minutes. And that's how I actually see life as well. It's not so much about what do I think is the coolest thing to do now. It's about this listening quality of what wants to come through and what would serve most in this moment. I love this analogy of being a conduit for life, or being like a midwife for what wants to be birthed. And I see this also in music, and I'm getting really excited about that. I have the feeling I could talk about this for another half an hour. But that's how I got into this in my experience.
Yeah, I love that symbolism of being that midwife, and that this whole life is this beautifully orchestrated thing. Like, there's so many connections with music and life, and I guess it's all about playing.
I also really love how this is just turning into like a dialogue and being like, and that you asked me some questions and I got to share a little bit about my experience. It feels very good and beautiful. So thank you for that. And I have the feeling that now actually we're coming with this episode slowly towards a close. If I feel into it, listen closely. And at this point, I just wanted to ask you if there's anything else where you're like, oh, before this episode ends, I would really want to say this, or I want that people know that, whatever it is. And if there's nothing, that's also fine. I just wanted to give you the opportunity that if there's something that you really want to say, this could be a good moment for this.
I just want to say a prayer. Yeah, I believed I shared so many things already, and that there's a lot of beautiful insights that people can choose to work with, be with, sit with. Yeah, just pray for health. And I pray for everyone to find their essence. And yeah, listening, I think, was a big theme of this episode. So yeah, it's an invitation for everyone to listen deeply. And yeah, and I pray for everyone to enjoy nature. And if you haven't yet today, to just go outside, go for a walk, and plant those feet into the earth. And just a prayer of gratitude for you offering this work to the world, for you sharing stories, and also to people who have had the patience to listen all the way to the end. I salute you. I celebrate you. Yeah. Gonna stay with that.
Amazing. Well, then I want to say a big thank you, Vivian, for being here. I'm so honored that you're here, and I feel that there's so much inspiration that you have to share with the world. If anyone is curious about exploring more of what you do, I'll write something in the description, and then people can check that out. Thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, I wish everyone that you get some inspiration from this episode, and looking forward to connecting with you in the next episode of Essence.
You.